very curious to see what the surveys look like. Hopefully later this year, probably early next year, we'll see the first batch of that possibly, but very curious to find out. Alrighty, I'm back. Been crazy busy the last couple of weeks, so it's good to be back in here. And a few of you probably saw this a while back, and it caught my attention too. But since then, there's been some things added onto it that I think are interesting by others, and we'll get to that in a minute. Um, I've said before, pay attention to what happens in higher education with respect to the sciences. Why? Because it's where we train the next generation of scientists for the most part, and so things going on in the universities really do matter because they do very much affect what the next generation of scientists would be, and what they have learned and what they will what kind of things will go on. So this caught my attention, and for that reason, because of the number of other surveys out there, be it the Heterodox Academy surveys, the FIRE surveys, and what have you, about censorship and academic freedom on university campuses. This is a new one, and I'm going to caveat this in the sense that I'm reading this mostly because I haven't found the actual survey results anywhere. I would very much prefer to read the survey results themselves in whatever documentation rather than the op-ed from the authors, because I like to dive into such things with studies and what have you to see, is there good things about them or is there something screwy about it or what have you. But for the moment, we're going to hit with this, and then I'm going to go back to a different piece that was produced out of Free the Inquiry, which is the Heterodox Academy one, which apparently builds upon theirs. But again, I have yet to find a link anywhere, and if you have it, please drop it in the comments for me because I'd like to read it. The actual survey data that's highlighted in this op-ed piece in The Hill from August 12th. Performative virtue signaling has become a threat to higher education. Now, it's their opinion on this one. On today's college campuses, students are not maturing, they're managing. Beneath a facade of progressive slogans and institutional virtue signaling lies a quiet psychological crisis, driven by the demands of ideological conformity. Between 2023 and 2025, we conducted 1,452 confidential interviews with undergraduates at Northwestern University and the University of Michigan. Put a pause in that right there and take it very much with a grain of salt, all of the results, because it's two universities, and that's not necessarily going to be representative of the broader population. We'll get to that again in a bit. We were not studying politics, we were studying development. Our question was clinical, not political. Quote, what happens to identity formation when belief is replaced by adherence to orthodoxy? We asked, have you ever pretended to hold more progressive views than you truly endorse to succeed socially or academically? An astounding 88% said yes. Now, this is students. Now, if that number holds for a lot of the other populations of student populations at different universities, that's pretty incredible, actually. That's pretty damned incredible, and not necessarily good either. In fact, matter, I would not say it's good if that is the case. You don't want students to just mouth the platitudes and things that their professors are telling them. You want them to be thinking, and thinking critically about certain things. In particular. So these students were not cynical, but adaptive. In a heavy grain of salt, though, like I already said, but adaptive. In a campus environment where grades, leadership, and peer belonging often hinge on fluency and performative morality, young adults quickly learn to rehearse what is safe. The result is not conviction, but compliance, and beneath that compliance, something vital is lost. Late adolescence and early adulthood represent a narrow and non-replicable development window. It is during this stage that individuals begin the lifelong work of integrating personal experience with inherited values, forming the foundations of moral reasoning, internal coherence, and emotional resilience. But when belief is prescriptive and ideological divergence is treated as social risk, the integrative process stalls. Rather than forging a durable sense of self through trial, error, and reflection, students learn to compartmentalize. Publicly, they conform. Privately, they question, often in isolation. There's no number placed behind this, so I don't know about the statement of in isolation to begin with. But anyway, the split between outer presentation and inner conviction not only fragments identity but arrests its development. The dissonance shows up everywhere. 78% of students told us they self censor on their beliefs surrounding gender identity, 72% on politics, 68% on family values. More than 80% said they had submitted classwork that misrepresented their views in order to align with professors. For many, this has become second nature, an instinct for academic and personal self preservation. To test the gap between expression and belief, we use gender discourse, a contentious topic both highly visible and ideologically loaded. In public, students echoed expected progressive narratives. In private, however, their views were more complex. This is why I want to see this study. I want to know how they did this. I'm actually really, really curious about that. And also because, I like to evaluate these things to see what I think of the legitimacy of the statistical analysis and the like there too. So, things like that. 87% identified as, okay, none of this is important right here. Authenticity, once considered a psychological good, has become a social liability. And this fragmentation doesn't end at the classroom door. 73% of students reported mistrust in conversations about these values with close friends. Nearly half said they routinely conceal beliefs in intimate relationships for fear of ideological fallout. This is not simply peer pressure, it is identity regulation at scale, and it is being institutionalized. This would be very concerning if it is the case, again, to universities, though, so we have to be very, very careful with this. And that's a point to be made there. Very, very small number. Universities often justify these dynamics in the name of inclusion, but inclusion that demands dishonesty is not ensuring psychological safety, it is sanctioning self-abandonment. In attempting to engineer moral unity, higher education has mistaken consensus for growth and compliance for care. Students know something is wrong. When given permission to speak freely, many described the experience of participating in our survey not as liberating, but as clarifying. It's interesting. I wonder why that was the remark. They weren't escaping responsibility, they were reclaiming it. For students trained to perform, the act of telling the truth felt radical. We do not fault students for perpetuating a climate that is hostile to intellectual integrity. We fault the faculty, administrators, and institutional leaders who built a system that rewards moral theater while punishing inquiry. In shielding students from discomfort, they have also shielded them from discovery. The result is a generation confident in self-righteous, but uncertain in self-righteousness and uncertain in self. This is not sustainable. If higher education is to fulfill its promise as a site of intellectual and moral development, it must relearn the difference between support and supervision. It must recenter truth, not consensus, as its animating value. And it must give back to students that what it has taken from them, the right to believe and the space to become. So that is their piece, the authors of the survey here writing this for The Hill as an op-ed. Again, I'm a little bit iffy on it because I can't look at the survey data myself. I want to see the results of the survey myself. I want to see the analytical methods that were done, and I haven't seen it published anywhere yet, and I haven't been able to find it either, which is strange. And that's why I want to see it. Maybe, and this is just to put it in the charitable view, it's distinctly possible that what happened is that it's still in press somewhere and just hasn't been published yet. Any number of different reasons why, still dealing with, I don't know, IRB approvals. It could be something that's legitimate that's holding it up, but I would be very, very curious to see the survey results, just satisfy my curiosity, and to look at some of the statistical analytics of it, because 2 universities is a small sample size. And that was the point made over here. Free the Inquiry, which is the Substack of the Heterodox Academy, which, if you're not reading, I suggest you do, because it's a good read, even if you completely disagree with them, which I have tended to. They write, classroom speech continues to be restrained and constrained. It'll have quite a tongue twister right there. As the new school year begins, defending the free exchange of ideas on campus remains top of mind for many. The changing federal regulatory landscape continues to rattle students and faculty alike, all of whom are facing uncertainty about the do's and don'ts of classroom exchange. Indeed, I understand that. Worryingly, new evidence suggests that students are eager to project ideological alignment with their professors, even if that means intentionally tamping down their own views or even silencing themselves entirely. A recent this link actually points back to the Hill article I was just reading. So that's why I'm like, I want the survey data, damn it. I want the survey data. A recent survey of undergraduate students at Northwestern University and the University of Michigan, conducted by two Northwestern grad students, found that they're grad students? Wait a second. Conducted by two Northwestern grad students. Hold it. Researchers. Oh, maybe that's why I couldn't find them on the website before. I was looking for them on the Northwestern website and I couldn't find it because I was thinking they were professors, but they may be students. Bravo. Found that over 88% of the 1,452 students surveyed pretended to have more progressive view in order to succeed socially or academically. 80% of respondents also said they had submitted classwork that we just read that from the other one. The survey's results must be interpreted with caution since the participating students may not be representative of the broader student population. This is distinctly possible. We have to be very careful with this. Now, of course, there's other things that might support it, such as nationwide survey conducted by the Buckley Institute in 2024 found that about half of the 823 students they surveyed were too intimidated to share beliefs that differed from their professors at least some of the time. The good news is that figure is down from 61% in 2023, which, bravo, that is good. Of course, students may not actually know where their professors stand on a given political matter, but what students can probably suss out is that faculty do tend to lean left relative to the general American population. And whether students are simply engaging in people-pleasing in order to lock in a higher grade or silencing themselves out of genuine fear of consequences, the end result is the same. Stifled classroom exchanges that throttle open inquiry. Unfortunately, faculty themselves are not often in a position to come out swinging in defense of free exchange in the classroom. Nearly 70% of non-tenure track and sorry, let's try that again. Nearly 70% of faculty are non-tenure track and consequently lack fuller academic freedom protections. Professors, regardless of status, can be taking great professional risks when allowing unencumbered exchange in the classroom. Earlier this year, the AAUP, if you follow this channel long enough, you know I have problems with the AAUP, but that's fine, and the AAC&U Academic Freedom and Civil Discourse in Higher Education Survey found two worrying trends that were more pronounced among non-tenure track faculty. First, the survey asked the following. If a student says something in class that students feel causes harm to certain groups of people, do you think that the instructor should stop the student from talking? Nearly 23% of all faculty, regardless of tenure status, said yes, a concerning finding in and of itself. The report also found that low-influence security faculty, who tend to be off the tenure track, were significantly more likely to say yes than faculty with greater security and influence. A second finding from the survey may also cause open inquiry advocates concern. One out of every 5 faculty also said yes when asked, quote, if a student says something in class that some students feel causes harm to certain groups of people, do you think that the student should report that student to the university administrator? Again, this finding was more pronounced in the group designated as low security faculty who are less likely to benefit from academic freedom protections, with 1 in 4 endorsing the student and student-on-student censorship. It's important to note that most of these surveys predate the current Trump administration. This is a point that I will make of this. I will be very, very curious to see the first couple of surveys on campus expression and censorship and what have you with the first full year of the Trump administration. Because, well, of course, I've been quite critical of things going on university campuses. I can't say I'm a huge fan of the Trump administration either. I'm not, with this particular way that they've gone about it. And some of the things that have resulted from that, though there are other places where I express my thoughts there. In particular, but I will be very, very, very curious to see what the surveys look like. Hopefully later this year, probably early next year, we'll see the first batch of that possibly, but Very curious to find out. In particular, censorious leanings exhibited by faculty, whether out of self preservation or need to protect students, cannot be blamed on the chaos of the last 8 months. This is true. But there is good reason to think that given the current climate, all of these tendencies, the self censoring, the silencing, the censoriousness, may be even more pronounced as university administrators and faculty struggle to find their footing in the rapidly changing regulatory landscape. In short, students are faking progressivism at the same time that fewer faculty have academic freedom protections, and just as accusations of hostile environments, bias, and discrimination are being lodged at universities left and right. Not exactly a recipe for open inquiry. Indeed, the environment's not great for all of it right now. But I would take that survey where they're saying 80 some odd percent with a huge grain of salt, because it's two universities, a lot of students at those two universities, but it is two universities worth of students. So it's not necessarily representative of the broader population, but it is still a concern because you don't want that's not a great culture where students are just imbibing back to you the values that you're speaking, even when they may not at all agree with you. That's not a good thing. And it's definitely not a good thing when you're training the next generation of scientists in these places either. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Till next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious.